So before we get started, we're going to let everyone kind of make their way into the room. My name is Leslie Walton. I am the NSHSS Member Engagement Manager. I will be your host for this evening. As we're waiting for everyone, chat at us in the chat panel that you should see down below if you hover your mouse. Let us know where you're from. Where are you guys joining us from tonight? New York, nice.
East Coast.
Texas.
California, Tennessee.
We've got two panelists from Texas. And then if you get a chance, let us know what is your connection to NSHSS? Are you a student member? Are you a parent? Are you an NSHSS educator yourself? Oh, Dr. Warnock's got some fans in the chat. Great, lots of students. So hopefully we'll get some great information for those students and facilitate some conversation and a little bit of learning on both sides about what you all have been going through during the year of COVID, which is still going on for most of us, of course. So it'll be interesting to see. We've got Courtney and Grace from our events team are on the back end helping us to make this run smoothly. So if you have any kind of tech issues, you can contact them. They'll help you out with that. And then if you have any questions for our panelists, you can put that in the Q&A so they can see them as they're going along. And we're just going to have a nice conversation this evening. So as everyone is coming in, I would like to tell you a little bit about the NSHSS Educator Program and how we came to meet all of the lovely people that you will get to speak with tonight and that are going to share their experiences. It is our program that helps us to recognize educators and the contribution that they make to our young scholars. We couldn't have all these young scholars that are a part of NSHSS without our educators and their educators to support them. So we developed a program to help to honor them and recognize the contributions that they make in our community. So we strive to honor them by offering grant opportunities, educational events, and programming like this to help them to have a voice in our community and to share their experience as an educator, why NSHSS is important to them, how it benefits their students, and also so that we can engage with one another and develop our community bonds. Every panelist with us tonight is an NSHSS Educator of the Year. So that's super exciting. We're so glad to have all of you. I will introduce our moderator for this evening is Sophia Gonzalez. She is our 2019 Top Educator of the Year from the Chicago area. And she came to us as an incredible speaker. She's passionate for education. She has sort of maintained her relationship with NSHSS for a while and was also one of our 2020 Be More grant winners of $10,000 for her work with her nonprofit Project 214, which is also educational based and helps to provide educational opportunities to underserved communities and girls in education. So we're very happy to have you here with us, Sophia. Thank you so much for moderating this panel tonight.
Yes, I am so super excited to be here. Thank you, Leslie, for that awesome introduction. Look, we are here to have a great conversation. So get some coffee, get some tea, get something that comforts you, and get ready to nestle in for an incredible conversation here tonight. Come up, step up to the table, take a seat. We're about to have an incredible conversation. But before I move on, right, I definitely want to introduce this incredible panel that I consider my new colleagues that I have had the privilege to meet and are equally a part of the NSHSS family. So we'll give them just a few seconds to introduce themselves. So I'll go in the order of the pictures. How about that, my lovely panel? So I will start out with Dr. Madhu, a 2020 Teacher of the Year from Memphis. Can you give us a little bit of some background of who you are and what's going on with you?
Thank you very much, Sophia. How many minutes do you have or hours I can go on for the whole time if you let me. As you heard, my name is Chikezie Madu. I teach at White Station High School in Memphis. Go Spartans. I teach also in some of the universities around here. I do research for the some colleges within the Memphis area. I currently teach AP Biology to juniors and seniors at White Station, and I've been a teacher for close to 30 years. In between teaching, I do some voluntary work also, a nonprofit organization. I have a strong passion for teaching and making equal access to underprivileged students to have equal access to education and quality education, actually. So I'm originally from Nigeria in West Africa, and I've been in Memphis for all that time. I think that's basically how brief I can be. I can go on, but that should suffice for now.
That is beyond sufficient. That is beyond sufficient. Thank you so much for your work, and thank you so much for your passion for what you're doing for students and the works of your hands. Appreciate you. Dr. Warnick, you are next.
Hello, good evening. Thank you all so much for coming to this event tonight. It's always good to have educators connected to one another. And I think particularly right now when we're feeling a little bit isolated, it's nice to have people with us. I am currently a business teacher at Roseburg High School in Oregon. I've been teaching business now for 7 years. Our students get roughly half of their associates in business before they leave high school. I also advise what has been for the last 2 years, the largest chapter of Future Business Leaders of America in the state of Oregon. And that's a role that I take very seriously, developing our future leaders. My journey into education was a little bit non-traditional. I was actually a teen mom and I dropped out of high school 2 months before graduation, giving up a full ride scholarship to an Ivy League school. And generational poverty kind of made its mark on me. I spent 15 years doing nonprofit administration kinds of things before I found my way back into education, which is a place that I love. It's the place that I think equity happens, where we're able to level the playing field for our underrepresented students. So now I have a master's in curriculum and instruction. I have an EDD in education leadership, and I'm working on my preliminary principal licensure, which I'll be finished with this semester.
Well, even just when you shared your story when we first met, it really moved me. So I'm really looking forward to you sharing more of your journey. I think it's such a wonderful picture of what it is to be given an opportunity. And I think that that's what we want for all of our students. And leveling the playing field, ooh, you speak in my language. Thank you so much for that. Mr. Walton, 2020 Principal of the Year. We have an administrator here. Let's talk. We want administrators in the conversation. We need you a part of these roundtable discussions. And so we're just excited that you're here. Tell us about yourself and your work.
Most definitely. Shout out to everyone from Texas. I see all of the Texas natives in the comments. Well, my name is Darian Walton. I am currently a district administrator here in Dallas ISD, a professor of business for Dallas colleges here, and also the CFO of my nonprofit, Walton Inspires. So I do understand the value of education. I have 8 years in education, 4 years in secondary education, and another 4 in higher education. As a first-year college student, as some of my colleagues online are as well, we actually understand the need to continuously redevelop ourselves and to pour into students and pour into other leaders so that we can actually enhance and lead students to success. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to share my side or my experience with education, and I look forward to the panel.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your perspective. And I think it's going to be of great value here tonight. And then we have Dr. Lauderdale, 2020 Counselor of the Year finalist. How amazing. So look at this plethora of perspectives that we're bringing here tonight. I'm so excited. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your work.
Oh, Dr. Lauderdale, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Hey, I am Dr. Claire Lauderdale, and I am the college counselor in Spring ISD. I work at Westfield High School, where I service almost about 2,900 students, 9th through 12th graders, and we just have a new 9th grade center, but I will still be able to help those students with college readiness tasks. So I love to lead with passion. I have 26 years in education, and I enjoy every day that I get to serve students, because it is indeed a passion that I have and working with students. So I'm really just honored and just happy to be here tonight, and just hoping that I can give some type of insights to questions or suggestions that how we can service our students better on the college readiness end.
Thank you so much for that, Doctor. I really appreciate that. And again, we're just so excited. You can keep your thoughts flowing in the chat. You could post some questions for us. We'll be able to navigate through some of those questions shortly, but we definitely want to dive in, because this is such a timely conversation. We are in the COVID era, and for the past several months, the school system has not been the same. And so we definitely want to come to the table, and we want to have a conversation about pains and gains. And we're not going to leave you there, right? We're definitely going to also give you some tips, right? Some best practices and some strategies that we have tried. Some have failed, some have succeeded, and some are in the middle. We're going to give you the raw truth. We're going to be authentic. We're going to be genuine, because we are on the struggle bus, but that does not mean that we have to stay there. And we are working diligently to try to not just try to survive, right? But to thrive in this type of environment as best as we can, because as they say, the show must go on. Teachers need to teach, and students need to learn, principals need to manage, counselors need to coach and to inspire. And so that's what we're here to do. So we're going to talk about right away, right, some pains, okay? I mean, obviously, March came around last March, okay? March of 2020 was a very tumultuous month. And as the social media storm, showcased, one of the longest months of the year, right? It was like March 333 days in. And it really changed things for us, right? Where we had to scramble, and so many districts across the country just had to run home and try to, try to continue teaching and learning. And with that came a lot of pains, right? So I really want us to go quickly one by one and just talk about some pains that you really identified that were some challenges for you in your context, right? And then, we could follow that up with some, gains, and then some tips. I'll start with Dr. Amadou. I know you had mentioned that you have so many things going on and you're passionate about so many things. How did this impact your best practices when COVID hit the airwaves?
Well, one of the things I've been accused of by my students is that I'm very animated when I teach. I use my hands, I move around, I jump on the table, whatever it takes just to get their attention. When this hit, it was such a crippling effect where you now have to sit down in front of the computer and just talk. If I wanted to have a job doing that, I would have probably become a telemarketer. So this was so anti my method of teaching. And the adjustment was very difficult to sit in front of a classroom to address the student. On top of that, I happen to teach a subject that is 3D. Biology, it's something you have to see, feel, smell, it's a science. So trying to explain some of these concepts to my students, for them to visualize a 3D concept through a 2D platform was incredibly difficult. I never thought I could even go so far with doing that this year. So this has been very challenging, changing my strategy without prior warning, and all of a sudden redesigning my entire curriculum to where students are now doing their labs at home, or they have to watch me do the lab through the computer, or I have to describe the lab to them and for them to visualize it. That was a great challenge for me, and coupled with other challenges. And I'm sure many science teachers also went through that process.
Yeah, and I could definitely testify to that because I, like you, am super animated. I know you can't tell, right? I am just like on top of the tables, climbing the walls, like doing theatrical performances. Because I mean, that's what teachers do. We edutain, right? And so it was just such like a punch to the gut for us. And it really was this swift transition. And if you're not used to teaching your content online like that with a heavy integration with all these tech tools, then it was really a baptism by fire. And we really just had to hit the ground running. And there were a lot of fires that needed to be put out. Dr. Walton, or Mr. Walton, talk to us about what that looked like from an admin point of view, like some of the pains, because I know that there were, so many things coming up the pipeline. And how did you and your team like manage some of those challenges?
So as you stated, so first of all, as Dr. Madhu stated, do whatever it takes. In March, we all, got the call, hey, we may be coming back after spring break, we may not be coming back. So at this moment, what do? We act. There was not a lot of time to actually think and plan. It was like, whatever we have to do, we have to do it. We knew, first of all, we had to continue school no matter what. So what was that? Communicating with students, communicating with parents, communicating with teachers, getting those technology resources out as soon as possible. If students did not have Wi-Fi, if they did not have hotspots, what was our means to getting that to the students so that we could continue learning? So as you stated, Edutain, right now, with us being separated from students, it's hard because as teachers, that's really why we got into the profession. Teachers, counselors, administrators, to make a difference in the students' lives. So it's important. We want that interaction. We have those students we see every morning. Hey, good morning. Hey, how are you? High-fiving. And not having that interaction or not hearing from those students is very difficult. Some students, of course, we still haven't had a chance to reach out to, or some, they prefer to stay home because safety measures or whatever is important for their families. So going through it, one important thing was to not be afraid to ask for help. As teachers, as counselors, we don't know it all. This is new for all of us. As students as well, if it's an assignment you're not sure about, we threw all these learning platforms onto you all. I'll be honest, Google Classroom, Blackboard, some of your first time using all these online resources, and you're afraid to ask for help because you don't want to seem as if you don't know. But one important thing from all leadership levels was ask for help and to get assistance with whatever it was that you needed assistance with. And again, remember, we're all going through this together. So teamwork, maintaining focus and staying positive throughout, and to know that at some point, yes, it won't be perfect. We will never go back to normal, but to know that someday we will get through this pandemic.
And I love that. I love that you're already demonstrating that positive mindset and that positive energy. And that's exactly what a team needs. That's exactly what the staff needs. I'm really close with my principal. And so I am like, constantly, in the talks with him, and I really value school leadership. And now has been the time more than ever for us to come together, right? It's not admin and then the teacher staff, like we're one team. Yeah. And now more than ever, we've been needing to come together, collaborate, communicate, and adapt, adjust, and recover, right? And so, yeah, and that's what the kids need, right? Like they need for us to come together and they need for us to be strong for them. Some of the challenges that I saw or some of the pains, right, was just this right away, it exacerbated some of the gaps that I was noticing that our student population was facing, lack of internet access at home, some of those resources that students need that are in high needs districts, and just how that exacerbated the inequity in the classroom. And for me, that was just such a frustration because it was just something that was just so hard for me to control. But learning to work with the students and saying, hey, how's your phone working?
Yeah.
Jump on your phone. You've got data on your phone, right? They're like, yeah, Miss G, I have data. I'm like, okay, so we're going to do this on our phone and it's going to be okay. And you can hand this in once you get internet access or once you get a ride to school, and you can be in a safe spot that's allocated for our students. And they're like, okay, and you just kind of have to roll with that. But for me, it's one of those things that I champion for, right? To bridge those gaps, and to really level the playing field. And COVID really just widened that gap, for high needs students and families.
True.
And many of my students, unfortunately, contacted COVID. And I had a student where his father contacted COVID first, worked at a factory, brought it home to his family. And unfortunately, my sons, or my sons, well, they're like my kids.
Yeah.
I swear I'm like their school mama. My student's father unfortunately passed, and my student had COVID. Would you believe this, Mr. Walton? The rest, like for days and days, and just was in this grief stage, and I never knew. And he was there in my class, and he was not really participating, but he was present. He was handing in assignments. It wasn't until his counselor emailed me and said, here's the situation with your student, if he's showing any signs of grief. And I'm like, the weight that our students were and are carrying, to me, was one of the biggest pains in my heart. And I'm sure you have a few stories like that too of.
Yeah, most definitely. And being situated in Dallas, I work specifically for the Career Institute, wonderful program, and we focus on students who want to go into the trades. And so one thing that we noticed with high school students, period, that a lot of our students during the pandemic, we found out they're the breadwinners for their family. So now we're torn between students who are going through these sad situations, a lot of students depressed, losing loved ones, a lot of them losing their homes, a lot of them not having access. Some of our students being the breadwinners, they have to work during the day to provide for their family. And students are saying, hey, Mr. Walton, I'm sorry, but making sure I have food on my table is more important than submitting this Google assignment. And so as educators, one thing that we really learned during the pandemic was grace. To show grace constantly, time after time and time again for these students. And as you stated, to really understand that sometimes what our students really need to learn is not on our lesson plans for that day, but it's actually say, hey, Johnny, how are you doing today?
That's right.
Hey, Susie, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What can I help you with? Right. And that will carry on way more than anything else in the classroom setting. But I definitely understand, and I definitely agree with the need to be present there with your students and to be transparent constantly.
Absolutely. And I mean, keeping the conversation going, Dr. Warnick, what have been some of your pains in the classroom and some of the challenges that maybe you have faced or your students have been facing?
I think you guys covered it pretty well. The inequity between some groups of students and other groups of students is really, really visible right now. And so some of these things are, just in the interest of complete honesty, some of these things are things I've been working on for, 10 years or longer. And it felt at first kind of like, oh, now all of a sudden people care about equity. When did that happen? And so I really had to adjust my mindset to be able to support people and remember what it was like when I first started to kind of come into my own and an understanding of how equity functions in education. And so I think one of the big challenges of the COVID classroom is internal more than it is external. As teachers, we identify, or as educators, we identify so much as part of our job. Like our job is who we are. And so all of a sudden when the job changes, there's some kind of identity questions that also happen, and we have to pay attention to those, be mindful of those, because the same thing is happening with our students. For all of the pains that I've had, I'm very, very comfortable with technology. I've taught online before, so that wasn't really a big worry for me. But all of my content is designed for in classroom. And so the amount of time that I have to spend just creating content that takes time away from my ability to ask those kinds of social emotional questions to my students and to be really present for my students. And I find myself sometimes torn in two different directions. Like, I have to get this lesson up on the internet for my kids right now. But I also have this student who's dealing with this really big thing. And normally they would come, we would sit down in my office, we would spend a little bit of time. That's not possible right now. So trying to make sure that every student is getting what they need from me. I'm an overachiever at heart, and I think a lot of educators are, and there's just no way to overachieve in this environment. So we're learning about our own limitations, and that's hard no matter who you are. Students are learning about their limitations, but I think in a lot of ways too, we can kind of shift that and think about, not only are we learning our limitations, we're also learning our potential.
So good. That's a treat.
And so my students are learning skills that they would never learn in the classroom. Like, they're using college learning management systems right now. They are having to manage their own time. Some of them don't do that very well, but none of us did when we were young. We had to practice that. They're learning some emotional regulation. They're learning how to be bored and how to be lonely. And I think those are very human skills that we don't teach, but they're really, really necessary for personal growth.
I think you raised so many interesting points, and just wanted to reiterate some things that are just noteworthy. When you said that, we're learning our limitations, I think all stakeholders are. All of us, we're learning our limitations as counselors, principals, teachers, students, parents. I know we have some parents here that they put that they're a parent in the chat. We love you, parents. We need you. You are part of our team. We can't do this without you. You are our backup, our ally, and also going through it with us. But I loved what you said when you said, but we're also pressed and realizing our potential. And I love that. And I think that that's something that we should definitely take into our next school year, and even this year, right? As we try to get to the end of the school year, to remind our students and staff members and our colleagues and friends and parents, hey, we are making it. We are surviving this thing. I mean, that is like, we should put awards on our chest right now, right? And I just think that that's such a wonderful thing. And so last but not least, from a counselor's perspective, Dr. Lauderdale, what have been some pains in that arena?
Well, when COVID started, it started at the end of our 2020 graduates, and it happened suddenly. And when they had technology, some of them, but even when they got technology, because our district was very quick about getting the technology that our students needed. But even when they had the technology, they still didn't have that social, gathering that they were used to. And so one of the biggest pains that I think that I experienced with my students is that keeping them hopeful. They began to just go to some forms of depression and losing a sense of hope and positivity that they were going to make it to graduation. So I found myself to be more like a counselor that with the light that sit on a hill that draws so many to me. And as a counselor, you'll get worn and torn, but there will be some students that's going to keep your light burning, that you're going to always be there for them, and they can always come to you. And you just have to teach them to just be hopeful, and just this too shall pass, but we have to press. And we have to be persevering, and we have to just be hopeful and to lift each other up, to be encouragers one to another. It is impossible for us to think that we can get through this alone, but we can get through it together. And as counselors, you have to draw from even your students' strength, even how low those strengths may be at times, but just that because they're coming to you for help, it gives me hope myself. and it lets me know I have a responsibility to bring these kids on to graduation. And I began to have Zoom meetings with these students, and they would share how they were feeling. And I started having assignments. I found out one girl was trying to learn to play the guitar. So the next time we met, she had to have a song learned so she can play for us in that Zoom session. Another one loved to sing. And we just kept each other hopeful and happy as we could. I made videos at the gym singing, be happy, and put it out there for the kids to see. In the midst of it all, there's still joy. So I think that was my role as a counselor. And then they did have graduation. And then this year, I have the pains this year is really just having the kids get on that computer, check your emails. But I just think that we all have pains, but whatever it is, there's medicine for our soul, and we just have to be just encouraged one to another, and just know that this too shall pass. And today will be a day that we learn that tomorrow we can do better.
Yes, the sorrow may last for the night.
Yeah, right.
But what comes in the morning, doctor?
Joy, joy, joy.
Joy, joy, joy. I mean, we cannot leave our audience without some, gains, and with that, some advice and tips. Let's quickly talk about just some quick gains, right? Like, something that was a gain for me. I had to quickly really try to move towards different ways to engage my students. And so I began to seek out virtual learning opportunities. And what's interesting is that the organization that I'm now working with my students is an affiliate of NSHSS. They're called United Planet. And I'm part of a virtual global program right now with my students. I got it approved. I don't know, the heavens open wide. So shout out to administration that be supporting their teachers, because Ms. G, they call me Ms. G. Ms. G came knocking on that door like, can I get this for my students? And we are in contact and collaboration with Jordan, Iraq, Greenland. Come on now. And we are solving world issues together. And it is an 8-week module. And so I just wanted to brag on that, okay? That my students are interfacing with students and teachers from all over the world. And maybe they wouldn't have gotten that opportunity had not we run to virtual learning and had to figure out new ways to excite and engage our students. So I just wanted to throw that out there, starting off the conversation. That was one of my gains. It inspired me, right, to readjust my curriculum, because I still wanted them to see the world, and I still wanted them to engage something with excitement and something that would lift their spirits. And so it's been so exciting thus far. It's our 2nd week. And so I'll have to keep you guys posted somehow. But you talk to us, panel. Tell us some of your gains in the classroom, in the office, in your field, where you're at right now. I'll start with Mr. Walton. Tell us just something that you've gained, right? That silver lining.
I would definitely agree with what you all said. So the creativity, so the ability to be creative and to know that no matter what you try, you can't fail at it. And even if you do fail at it, it's more of a reason to actually bring the students, get the students involved. So definitely engagement. How can we not only recruit these students to come back into our, our virtual classrooms, but also retain the students? So even especially my teachers, my admin team, my counselors, there was nothing off limits when it came to platforms, when it came to professional development, any interaction that we could have with the students, we were doing it. As she stated, dancing around with students, whatever video that we can do to excite the students, that's what we're doing. So some of the teachers, of course, being doing it for years, they had certain ways they wanted to teach curriculum, certain platforms they used, but they came outside the box and they were open and they were actually receptive to learning new things. But definitely, I would say the ability to be creative and to try new things.
I love that creativity, trying new things, allowing your teachers to engage these platforms, giving us the license, right? Giving us the permission and the user accounts.
Yes.
Love it. Give me my tools, my username, password. Thank you. Amen. Dr. Lauderdale, tell us about some of your gains.
Well, you'll be surprised right now. You when we work together in the district level and the counselors and administrators and all, and I think my game was a sense of appreciation for each other. I think I was seeing them all the time. I kind of took that for granted, but now I'm more appreciative of being able to really work there with them, and appreciative of the district seeing our students' needs and trying to meet the students' needs. I mean, whether it was food or transportation or technology. And then we have what's called FACE, it's Family and Community Engagement, and they try to meet, parents, they have so many, networking people that they work with, and then they share with us on a level that our students are being blessed by what they're doing. And then the gains is just being a better, I guess, being more aware of the blessings you already had, and that was with each other. And because we work so close together, then we can work better for our students. So our gain, to me, I think, was a closer relationship and working closer to meet the needs of our students. And in doing so, we have joy, and like you said, with each other and being able to do so. So I think that my gain would simply be to have a sense of appreciation for those who I work with. And we come and we work collaboratively to meet the needs of all of our students as a district, as a campus, and as departments. We meet the needs of our students. And so that showed me that Spring ISD, we care about our students.
I love it. That shows so much love and so much heart. Dr. Warnick, tell us some of your gains quickly, then we'll go to Dr. Madu, and then we've got some tips. We've got some things going on in the chat. They're telling us what some of their gains are. We're gonna have to return to that.
Yeah, so I love bringing up that awareness. I think awareness of equity issues is something that has come out of the pandemic, that I just hope when the pandemic's over, it's not like tucked back in the background. I think we're really aware of it right now. And because we're aware of it, I'm seeing more efforts to address equity than I've seen probably in the last 15 years. And I think that's a huge, huge gain. I also think for the first time, students are seeing teachers as people, and teachers are seeing students as people. We're not seeing each other as learner and instructor. We see each other's, we see each other's pets, and we see the pictures on the background, or the stuffed animals or whatever that is, and we get to interact on a much deeper level than I've heard some teachers say, like, my relationships with my students aren't as strong in this virtual environment. And I found just the opposite. My relationships with my students are much, much stronger because I get where they're coming from. And I had one really, really bad Zoom lesson when I actually almost broke down in tears because it just was not doing what I wanted it to do. And I'm, tired. And students were like, Doc Knock, it's okay. Like, you're doing it. You're teaching us. Like, you're doing this in this crazy world. Like, I had no idea that you guys ever felt this way. Because in the classroom, and when we aren't exhausted, we just keep that face,
Right.
I'm the teacher, listen to me. So I think that's been really positive, and it's shifted the way students think about learning.
Absolutely. And this vulnerability, right, that we've had
Yeah.
to play, we don't have it all together in this context, at least not right now. Give us a few days, give us a few periods, we'll figure this out. And so just showing our humanity, I think on all levels, right, has been so refreshing, I think, to the entire school building. And then Dr. Madu, tell us about quickly some of your gains. Something that has really been a silver lining for you. Oh, I think you're muted.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The way I see it is, virtual learning was inevitable. It was going to happen at some point. Being in the computer era, COVID just accelerated our getting into it. And for some of us who were not very computer savvy, we were avoiding the thought or even avoiding contemplating getting into. So COVID forced every one of us to go this route. And it helped me to get more computer savvy because I had to learn how to navigate between one computer to another, between one platform, and how to learn how to use Zoom and many other things. So it has helped me personally to improve in my computer knowledge. Now I can easily get materials to teach biology online, which I'm very sure will come in handy in future. If I have to teach students from other countries or other states, I can easily do that now, having learned how to do it online. Secondly, I don't know of other schools, but this has helped my attendance. Students getting just waking up and logging on. They don't have to think about ride to school, car broke down, etc. So I've had high consistent attendance all year and zero to nothing disciplinary issue. There's no issue of he touched me, he poked me with his pen, or he
Right.
looked at me. So all that out of the way, I can actually focus on the job of teaching where you can't tell me somebody was messing with you when he's not even close to you. So
Right.
lastly, the irony, despite the distance, teaching online creates, there's that closeness. I think Dr. Warner, you mentioned it. Being so close to my students, just like as I am with you now, kind of gives me a more intimate setting that I can look at them closer. We seem to be closer than we are farther away. So it has actually brought us closer in learning where we can look into each other's eyes and have more focus and attention. So I see a lot of good things that has come out of it. I wouldn't have wished for this, but I look at the positive that has come out of this since we're there. It has really enhanced my teaching skills and helped me to explore areas I wouldn't have done otherwise.
I love it. And now we're dealing with other issues like what profile pic is that? No, right? I got squirrels, I got hamsters. I'm like, what is this? Definitely though, right? We've got some things going on in the chat of what some of their gains, learning how to manage stress. We have someone here talking about being able to increase their acceptance of themselves and learning how to do things on their own. Lots of positive things that people here are, going through and experiencing. And that's another beautiful thing that we could take away from this, right? All of the things that we gained and some of the things that we learned, right? Wonderful. So, what are some things that we can do here in terms of some tips, right? Like, what are some tips that we could leave? Thinking through that, for me, it was all about self-care, right? I don't know if you want to put in the chat if self-care was important to you, because it was important to me. Really taking the time to manage your mental health and getting out there, moving your body, exercising, finding those outlets that would really create that relaxation and getting your mind focused. For me, it was mental health and just really learning to self-care. Yep. Knowing when to disconnect when there was too much screen time and knowing when to take care of myself and also my family and really being okay with being selfish with my time, shutting things down, not answering notifications, and just really focusing on re-energizing myself because I know that I have to come back the next day and serve my kids. Anyone, if anyone wanted to unmute their mic and share some tips, I'm going to let this flow. If anyone wanted to share some tips. Yes, go ahead, Dr. Bill.
One thing I would say, because teachers, I know we're very proud of our work and our product, but this is not the year to assess your teaching skills of how, because you will not come with your best practices this year. So one thing I'm learning to tell myself is it's okay. Be patient with yourself. Mr. Walton said it, don't find it too hard to ask for help. Reach across the aisle and ask your fellow teacher. As a matter of fact, you have the best teachers in front of you, your students. They know more about the computer probably than you do. And all the time I ask them, okay, I'm having a problem looking for what to minimize here. Could you help me? And you'll be surprised how many hands go up, eager to help. So that also forms a relationship. So be patient with yourself. This is not when to assess how good you are as a teacher. Let this period pass and you can internalize and learn from this situation. It's easy for us to be hard on ourselves that this wasn't the best lesson I had presented, or last year when I did this, it came out better than this, and that's okay. We will pass through this, it will just hang in, and at the end, we're going to learn a lot from this.
Absolutely. Patience, self-care, be kind to yourself. You got that, our wonderful listening audience. Any last tips before we get to this future focused comment or feedback that we're going to offer?
I just like to say, Sophia, is one of the tips that I have is just don't give up. You're not in this alone. We're all trying every day. Just don't give up. Every day is a new day to make it better. So that's just one of the things I do. No matter what I have to do, I just can't give up. So just the counselors who are serving so many students, teachers, administrators, parents, and students themselves, just don't give up. We'll make it out together. Just don't give up.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Lauderdale. I really appreciate that. Now we've got questions and open discussion. Let's talk.
Great. So if there are questions that you would like to put in the panel for any of our panelists, you can direct it to them. You can also use that Q&A box to put your questions in there. Otherwise, Dr. Warnock or Mr. Walton, if you have some elements that you would like to keep, that you want to keep that conversation going, but then we can talk about these questions over here and share a little bit more. If you have a question for Dr. Madu, you should send it in now because he's a busy man and has another panel to go to. So if you have a question for him, I encourage you to do it now. But yeah, just go ahead, keep going. I just wanted to say that real quick.
So I have been kind of holding off. Gavin asked, how can we use what we learned during COVID and use it to help ourselves and others in the future? And I didn't want to type an answer because I think it's kind of a multifaceted question. I think this kind of learning is the same as any other kind of learning. How we use it depends on what we've learned about ourselves and whether we are willing to sit with that discomfort and actually do something about it. So we can take the positive things that we've learned and put those to use in all sorts of ways. I saw in the chat a lot of conversations about self-care, a lot of conversations about learning to sit with yourself, self-awareness, learning how you learn. All of those things are things that require active practice. And right now we're in a situation where we're forced to practice those. And what is really, really important for using that in the future is that we are mindful when we're not forced to do it anymore, that we do it by choice. And then we take maybe the things that we're learning that are not so positive, and we make a conscious effort to change those. To address inequities, to address maybe the parts of ourselves, like I am a chronic over scheduler, and I work, in a regular year, I work 60 to 70 hours a week by choice, and I've had to learn through the pandemic, like you can't do that. A person can't keep doing that and be healthy. And so, I take that learning, and then not just for myself, but how do I give that to students who are just now starting their journey into overachieving and over perfectionism and over scheduling. And so the best thing that I can say is whatever you've learned, model it. When the pandemic is over, model it. And that's really the best way that we're going to be able to use this in the future.
That is so true. If you don't mind, Kaylana, she commented earlier, said she was happy about the accomplishments that she's achieved when isolated. And one thing that I want people to remember, during this flexibility that you have, it's important for you to gain new skills. So we're talking about how educators, we gain skills, but also parents, students, there are certain skills that you're gaining, as Dr. Warnock just mentioned. During this, I know I'm on Facebook, I'm kind of aging myself, but there are several friends who have written books, they've published songs, they've started businesses. A lot of them have started school. I'm in a doctoral program right now, and I've sped through so many classes because of the flexibility that I actually have during the evening times to actually focus on that self-care. So Kaylana, I'm glad that during your isolation, you're able to actually promote yourself to something more positive. But that's something that I challenge all of you on here who are listening, that during this pandemic, do not come out of it without learning a new skill or a new task. We cannot take this pandemic, this time to actually love on our loved ones, this time to actually understand who we are as individuals. We can't take it for granted. So it's definitely important for you to, even if you learn how to stitch something, you learn how to code, you learn how to create a business plan, something of that sort. It's important for you to actually spend more time with family, spend more time with your children, form those relationships that you need to form. And then Ms. Carter, she asks, what are the steps to form a nonprofit corporation? And she asks specifically as it related to education. So the first thing with nonprofits, a lot of people, they feel as if they want to help, they want to do something, and they want to start a business to do it. So remember that you do not need a nonprofit, you do not need a business in order to make an impact on your students, on your loved ones. So if it's something you're doing naturally that you want to just continue to do, then go ahead and continue to do it naturally. However, if you want that nonprofit, the tax write-off, but you really want to implement or, get your name out there more, then I would say it is important to do a nonprofit. And I can put my email address in there for you to contact me, and I can share that with you a little easier. But the most important thing right now is to think about, what is it? What is your why? So what is the why behind why you want to start a nonprofit? For me, Walton Inspires, my nonprofit, we change perspectives and we change lives. A first generation college student, single parent household. My mom instilled education for us, and I wanted to do something that I can do to impact the younger generation. What could I do? I could instill socioeconomic possibilities, financial literacy, the need to get some form of education, even if it's not a college degree, a certification that will allow you to be a plumber, electrician. That's my goal. That was my desire since I was younger. So it's really important for you to think of, what is your why and what do you want to do to impact the people around you?
I see a question here. Any advice with how to push yourself and stay encouraged while in a toxic household? Because of COVID, some children have been stuck in these types of homes. I think that obviously, along with COVID, really showcasing some disparities, this is another danger. And so first and foremost, know that you have resources. And obviously, as teachers and admin here in the Zoom, we are your allies. And so if at any instance you feel like you are in harm's way and you are in a toxic environment, please reach out to a teacher, to a counselor, to someone that you trust. And they should be able to get you the resources that you need. Advocate for yourself, advocate for others, and really get the ball rolling with that. Very important, because we know that COVID has brought everybody in the house, and sometimes the household may not be the safest place. So I really just wanted to interject. I think that that's a very important question.
And also, I think Kalani had a question about, do we see our students differently due to the pandemic? I think as educators, we see our students with our eyes, but I think we see our students from the heart. And because of the pandemic, I think we see our students even deeper from our hearts. We see them, like someone said, just as a person now. Now that I know my students, how can I help my students? And how can I help them succeed? How can I help them go day by day? So the pandemic cannot be the end of all. It has to be something that we get over all together. So I think that's how I see my students now, is that I see them deeper with such empathy and just with more love and even I guess a more fire that's lit in me now, because I know that I can't let my light go out now, because they really need it to shine even brighter at this moment. So I don't see them differently in a bad way, but I see them differently from my heart. And because of it, I see the whole child and I want to be able to help them. So I am really happy that I am in a district that we work together to meet our students' needs and actually serve them from our hearts.
Yeah, that's great. Mr. Walton's putting some ideas about free resources that you can reach out to in the chat over there. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of those do vary state by state. So you can search based on your state for the resources that are available. Sorry, Mr. Walton, go ahead.
No, that's correct. Yeah. For the free resources are state by state. But as Ms. Gonzalez stated first, go to your counselor, go to your teacher. And someone put on there, to pray for wisdom and understanding. I'm very religious. Well, I'm gonna say religious, but as a Christian, it's something that I do. I push, I pray, whatever it is that you may do. Set out time for yourself to meditate. If it's reading a book, if it's listening to your favorite song, do what you need to do to understand who you are and to gain that momentum and that strength that you need to push forward.
One of the questions I read, which I would have answered, but I think Ms. Gonzalez, you're already addressing it. A student said he or she is drowning in homework and just doesn't know how to strike a balance. Well, you're not the only one in this situation. I think some of us underestimated this virtual setting where we kind of take on too much on ourselves because we think since it's virtual, we can accommodate more than we normally do. And I'm guilty of that, where I have meetings scheduled back to back. So one thing I would suggest to you, if it's not too late, do not take too many classes that you can handle. Do not think because this is a virtual setting, you can do more or even as much as you used to do prior to this time. So if you can cut down on your workload, I have students that take 5, 6 AP classes. Then they wonder, why am I drowning in so much work? Well, you only have 24 hours a day for 3 things: sleep, social work, or what else? Sleep, social work, and also extracurricular activity. You can't get more than 24 hours. So cut down on some things to do. If you have a job, you may need to ask them to cut down on your hours. If you're into other activities, we need to slow down and let some things go. Colleges would not accept you based on how many activities you get yourself involved in, but how meaningful those activities are. So thinking you can do 10, 12 activities with 7 AP classes is not really the way to go. Make time for yourself, make time to enjoy, make time to be a child. But if this is already your situation, you may need to talk to your teachers or your administrators to consider talking to your teachers, because sometimes teachers don't realize that you have 5 other teachers giving homework at once. So, and I'm guilty of that. And my students often tell me, we already have 5 homework from these other teachers. Can you postpone yours or extend your time or cut it down? So your teachers are human beings, I believe. They can always work with you. So just talk to them and see if they can reduce the amount of work that they give you, and hopefully you'll be able to handle everything at once. So on this note, I apologize, guys. I would have to go, but thank you so much for the opportunity. And I wish both the panelists and the audience attendees good luck. We will get through this. We will. And I believe we will come out stronger and better.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Madu.
Yeah, and just quickly piggybacking off of that, I think it's crucial for all of us, to leave with some of these nuggets of wisdom. I have a teenage son who actually is a student in our West Campus. I teach in my neighborhood, and it's just a personal value of mine that I want to teach where I live. And My son is in almost all honors classes, and one night I walked into his room and he had his, head between his hands, and I'm like, well, are you okay? What's happening? He's like, I have too many labs. I have an essay. I have a presentation. And I'm like, have you spoken to your teachers about how overwhelmed you're feeling? He's like, well, no. And I'm like, advocate for yourself. Do you want me to do it? I digress. Um, advocate for yourself, right? We don't know what's inside of your head. And that needs to come out. If you're feeling like you're in a tsunami, as our friend was saying here in the chat, we need to know about it, because then we can start to relieve you, and we could throw you a life raft, and we could pull you to shore and start negotiating and really putting together a plan. That's what I do with my students. I negotiate. Don't do this. I need this. This is what we're talking about right now. Can I just be real, right? Let's just negotiate. Let's just see what we could do here, okay? And you not like fall off a cliff and me running to go get you. Advocate for yourself, please, as an adult, as a parent, and as a student.
I think we had, Dr. Warnock, there was a question you were going to answer.
Yes, so Freda says, if you're falling behind, losing motivation, or already struggling, how do you get back on track and stay motivated? And so I'm kind of in a unique position to answer this question because I dropped out of high school 2 months before graduation. And it's fair to say that I was a little bit off track and falling behind and losing some motivation. Also, I think what sometimes happens, and I see this with students a lot, sometimes I see it with other teachers too, is we start to fall behind and then we make an assumption that we have to solve all of the problems at the same time before we can move ahead. Okay? And the reality is that if we try to solve all of those problems at the same time, we're going to lose even more motivation potentially because there's just too much, and not all problems have equal weight. So the very first thing that we have to do is accurately identify the problem. We have to know, is the problem really that I've lost motivation, or is the problem that I'm a little bit overwhelmed? Because those are two different problems. And if I'm overwhelmed, I can bring that down to a level, and maybe I say, okay, I'm behind, I'm missing 5 assignments. I'm going to finish 2 and 2 of those assignments, and then I'm just going to start where I'm at, right? I'll leave these other ones. Work with your teachers. I will sit down sometimes with students and work with them to kind of prioritize assignments, because not all assignments are as meaningful as others. And so, I need you to do these couple of assignments, and then we can move forward. You also have to remember that falling behind, feeling frustrated, feeling overwhelmed, losing motivation, these are not character flaws. And so what I found in myself was I found that I started to feel like my failures were a representation of who I was, when in all actuality, my failures were a representation of where I came from and what I was going through at the time. And so try to shift your perspective a little bit to it's not about falling behind, it's about catching back up, right? And how can I do that quickly? Maybe that means I'm doing just a couple of those assignments that I'm missing and then starting at the top. Maybe that means I'm talking to my instructor, advocating for myself. I love that Ms. G says that. Advocate for yourself. It's a very, very important skill, but sometimes lost motivation is really a lost sense of self. And so figure out what that is, and that's going to help you address that.
Thank you for that very much. That was very eloquently put. We've got a couple more questions in the chat that I think we're going to be Dr. Lauderdale's answering. And then I thought, Mr. Walton, do you have anything that you want to kind of leave us with? And don't forget, panelists, if you have social media or links to any websites that you would like to share with our students and the attendees tonight, to make sure to drop that into the chat so they can access you later.
I can mention something. So I was actually answering a question in the chat. I'm not sure if it's a student or a parent or a teacher, but they said while teachers have been providing e-class resources and students have done their best to be on top of assignments, many have caught what is known as the dreaded senioritis. How can students be made to attend classes online to be more attentive in class? My teachers made it so that attendance is mandatory. So from the ending of that, it sounds as if it's a student, so I'll just respond here. So remember that no matter what state you're in, attendance is mandatory for students. Now, if it's virtual or if it's face-to-face, it depends on your teacher, it depends on your school setting. But when it comes to senioritis, it's something that a lot of us had. It's not going away anytime soon. It was here before COVID is here, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be here long after. But we get to a point, as Dr. Warnock was mentioning, it's not that we lose focus, but we get to a point where we feel as if, okay, we've done what we needed to do. Now it's my time to relax. I've done what I needed to do. But we can't allow ourselves to become complacent in that setting. So we have to, once we get the urge to quit, we have to find some motivation to push forward, to continue to push, because your finish line is not there yet. You're not there yet. You have not attained what you feel the need you need to attain. But one thing as teachers, most definitely who are listening, we have to be creative when we're creating these assignments for our students. If it's project-based learning, if it's something they can do at home, something they may be able to do with a sibling, group projects they may be able to do virtually, choose something that aligns with the surrounding area that your students are in. Do something that they can relate to. And then for the students, don't feel afraid to tell your teachers, hey, I understand the assignment they're working on. However, can we create an assignment that may be more relatable to us as students? Now, do not bring a problem to the table without having a solution for your teachers or for whoever you're speaking with. But for one thing, it's important for us to, again, maintain the reason or the expectations while we're in school. Continue to remember, we're here to learn, we're here to gain, and we're here to not only help each other, but to help ourselves as well. But that was a great question. But to continue to push forward for our seniors who are on here, you are not at the finish line yet. We know you've been through a lot. This won't be probably the worst thing you'll go through in life, but this is going to give you the skills that you need to overcome obstacles in the future.
That's amazing. It probably seems like it's the worst thing that they've gone through, right? So far. Dr. Lauderdale, would you like to share some closing thoughts with us?
I just want to tell everyone it's really a pleasure and honor to be here tonight to just share my thoughts. And I'm gaining and learning from some of the questions and some of the comments. And so I'm just prayerful that everyone got something that was shared tonight, and that we just remember that no matter where we are, we're in this together and we'll get through this. And just be hopeful. And if you have any questions, particularly as counseling, always feel free to email me, what have you. And I'll be happy to do whatever I can do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. Dr. Warnock, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, closing thoughts. Just honestly, I'd really like to thank the other panelists who are here and kind of cheering people on. It's always interesting to me to sit on a panel with other educators who are as passionate as I am about education, and sometimes more passionate. And Sophia, I just loved your energy tonight. So thanks so much to my fellow panelists and to all the people who are watching. If you are a student who is struggling, I think, or if you are a teacher who has students who are struggling, and that struggle could be, maybe it's one of those homes, those toxic environments. I grew up in one of those homes. School was my safe place, and I don't know what might have happened had I had to be home with the people that I lived with for a full year. But I do know that there's a way out. And it doesn't feel like there's a way out when you're in it, right? And education feels like the least important thing when you're in it, because you're paying the bills for your family, or you're just trying to survive day to day, or you just need to figure out who the heck you are in the midst of everything. Education is the way out. And if that means a trade school, if that means, you know, going to do something, that is your way out. So don't give up on it, no matter how hard that is. Yeah, okay, I'm done.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you. And then of course, we'll close out with our lovely moderator for the evening, Sophia.
Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to be the crazy co-pilot. I don't know what NSHSS was thinking. I don't know what y'all were thinking. First and foremost, thanking the panelists, my fellow colleagues in the trenches. Onward and upward, continue the good fight. Continue to advocate for your students and for your staff, and continue to shine bright in dark places. To all the listeners, thank you for tuning in. And listen, I want to leave you with some words from the GOAT, Michael Jordan. You will miss 100% of the shots that you do not make. I need you to make the shot. I need you to take the shot in the midst of COVID, in the midst of a pandemic, in your darkest hour. Take the shot, because you will never know if you will get and achieve nothing but net. Okay? You hear me when I tell you, take the shot. Take the shot. And so hopefully you are encouraged tonight. Hopefully it was a breath of fresh air into your lungs. We are in it together, as we have been stating, and we will get out of it together. Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you so much to all of our panelists from us here at NSHSS. This has been so valuable and rewarding. As the thank yous in the chats are coming in, you can take a look at those. Everyone loved it. Don't forget to check out the other events and webinars that we have on our website, nshss.org. And don't forget to check out those scholarships. And if you find something valuable and this has been helpful to you, please make sure to share it with your community, because you are our best advocate to share these resources and benefits we offer so that others can experience it as well. Thank you all so much for being here. It was a wonderful panel. So exciting to have our 2020 Educators of the Year to kick off our new semester and this new year. So thank you for everything. We look forward to seeing you and hearing more from you in the future. Good night, everyone. Thank you.